June 30th. The obstacle is the way. While it's true that someone can impede our actions, they can't impede our intentions and our attitudes, which have the power of being conditional and adaptable. For the mind adapts and converts any obstacle to its action into a means of achieving it. That which is an impediment to action is turned to advance action. The obstacle on the path becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 5.20. Today things will happen that will be contrary to your plans. If not today, then certainly tomorrow. As a result of these obstacles, you will not be able to do what you planned. This is not as bad as it seems, because your mind is infinitely elastic and adaptable. You have the power to use the Stoic exercise of turning obstacles upside down, which takes one negative circumstance and uses it as an opportunity to practice an unintended virtue or form of excellence. If something prevents you from getting to your destination on time, then it's a chance to practice patience. If an employee makes an expensive mistake, this is a chance to teach a valuable lesson. If a computer glitch erases your work, it's a chance to start over with a clean slate. If someone hurts you, it's a chance to practice forgiveness. If something is hard, it's a chance to get stronger. Try this line of thinking and see whether there is a situation in which one cannot find some virtue to practice or derive some benefit. There isn't one. Every impediment can advance action in some form or another. How's it going, guys? My name is Vinci, and we are here today to do another drawing. I'm gonna be guiding you guys down my process of creating a quick portrait drawing study. I'm gonna try to keep it to about an hour, but with editing, I can whittle it down. There's a lot of empty space, and we can just get started. Starting off, I am using these Blackwing pencils. No, this is not sponsored, but these are phenomenal. This one's super soft. This is about medium, still pretty soft though. And this is the harder version, and I'm using a white charcoal pencil as well, with an eraser and a sharpener. Also, paper, toned, acid-free. The shit. Highly recommend using toned paper, especially with a white charcoal pencil. I am going to link all of these supplies down below. They're fairly cheap and inexpensive, so if you want to try drawing some portraits, draw anything, that will be down in the description. Those links are affiliate links, so by buying those supplies, you are also helping me support my channel, which is amazing. I appreciate you for even watching this video right now. So let's dive in. Today I'm going to be drawing a quite similar portrait that I did yesterday. It's all about developing and fine-tuning your skills. Have the bottom half of the face drawn, and I'm gonna take a compass. Didn't mention this a few seconds ago. You do not need a compass, but I find them to be quite helpful. Right now I am trying to find the center of the face. Not quite right, but it will have to do. So before this video started, I laid out a 1" by 1" grid on this piece of paper, and I also have this grid laid over my reference photo. And what this is gonna do for me is just give me some basic guidelines to keep this drawing accurate to the person I'm drawing. This is not necessary, it's not mandatory for you to do something like this. But if you find you need some help, you need a little fine-tuning when it comes to the design, and if you find your subject matter to be slightly off in your drawings and you're doing it freehand, I would recommend putting a grid down, build up some confidence, and I promise you it will be a tool you will use from that day on as an artist, because it's really easy to do. It's quite the tool you have at your disposal. Okay, wonderful. Right now we have the ears laid in, we have this basic circle of the skull and then the jawbone. Now, of course, his head is tilting down. His head is slightly tilting down, and the top of his head is showing quite a bit. His hair kind of appears as this nice circle. This little rhombus right here, this is the keystone of the front of the face. I said in the last video, you have the ear, that's the keystone of the side of the face, and that's going to help you bring out that plane of the face if you're drawing a silhouette, for example. But this is the keystone on the front of the face, and from here you can take this shape into the eyebrows. You can build out this structure that surrounds the eyes. And then from this corner of each of these angles, it goes down and connects to the eye. You have your eyes in here. Your eyelids wrap around, pupil, all that good stuff. And then you have the bridge of the nose coming down off of the same corner to build out your nose. And it goes down and gets a little wider at the bottom. There's a slight ball at the end of your nose. So from the bottom of the nose, you have a V shape. I can't remember what the anatomy is called, but this is going to be what connects. This is the bridge between the nose and the top of the lips. Each side of the lips comes usually about to the center. There's variation from person to person, so these are just basic guidelines to your drawing. These aren't law. We're gonna make his chin just extend a little more. But it's gonna appear smaller than it would be if he was looking at you straight on rather than at an angle. So this chin is gonna disappear a little bit. Here we have the collar of his shirt. And now we can define this hairline. And frame this face. Before we even go into detail, before we even think about going into detail with this hair. What are you guys drinking? Today I have some Earl Grey with some honey and some almond milk. Super spectacular. What are you guys drinking? Let me know in the comments. So I didn't even worry about the eyes because this guy has glasses on. There are some reflections in these glasses that I can take advantage of, but they are an oval shape, so using that compass is going to be slightly problematic. So I'm going to draw these in willy-nilly. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not worried, and I am never really worried about perfection when I'm making art. It's not a reproduction of the reference photo I'm using. It's not actually, it technically would be a reproduction of the photo I'm using, but it's not a copy of it. It's not a one of one. It's different. There's mistakes, there's variations, there's artistic, creative liberty that I find myself taking. I believe I would like the focal point of this drawing to be the glasses, like the Matrix. What's his name? I can't remember, but he has those glasses and they're CGI'd to reflect everything, and it just looks super trippy, and it gives him this mystique. And I want this drawing, when you look at it, to be looking at that guy's face and him about to tell you, you're in the Matrix. Wake up, Neo. And these glasses have some white frames, so this dark black outline isn't gonna do me too much good. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase it subtly. Not erasing it off the paper, but I'm erasing it so charcoal can be drawn over. And the shape can be slightly adjusted as well. forehead. And they give a lot of shape. They can help the drawing feel nice and round. Build out these ears a little more, adding some lines inside. Along with the left one. With some of these lines on the face, I want to accentuate some curves. A lot of times when you first lay things down on paper, they can be very jagged, very straight, and they won't follow your subject matter completely. And it's nice just to be patient and then to go back over your drawing just to make sure all of these rhythms inside the lines, just to make sure they are correct and looking aesthetically pleasing. Because you can create a lot of character with just a simple curve in the ear. You can make something really feel alive. If you know how to manipulate the shape. In the reflection of these glasses. Because he's looking down, these glasses are reflecting the floor into them. And it's a checkered board floor. It's a checkered board floor. And I love that. I am an avid player of chess. I just can't get enough of it. Kind of reminds me of the sports I played back in school. It's such a small space that creating these lines and this perspective shouldn't be a tough task. they aren't very straight. They're curved and distorted. And the perspective manipulates them to the slightest degree as well. So they get slightly smaller towards the top. You can't be afraid to take some steps back inside your drawing. So now I have this checkerboard, and the last thing to do is fill in the dark and light spots, because we're at a point with this drawing that the sketch is just about complete. It's at a good place. I feel like now is the time to add the shading, add the depth, add the shape, and make this thing come alive. And I'm gonna distort these squares so that they are no longer squares. That's how it almost looks. They have just the slightest curved edge to them. And I think that would be cool to include. Going back to what I was saying a few seconds ago, when you are sketching out your plan for a drawing and it's not in a good place, you don't want to add shading yet. Not that they're imperfections. You want to get all of the inaccuracies out of the sketch before you add the shading, because once you have the shading in, going back and changing things is quite difficult, and you could end up ruining your drawing, and then you're back to the drawing board, starting over again, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Starting over can be a great thing to do. And sometimes that means I'm doing 5, 10, maybe 20 drawings before I even start on a painting, or I completely ditch an idea because it just didn't work out in the drawing stage and I no longer see potential in the design. I want a striking, jaw-dropping image. That's the goal. So, continuing on with this drawing, I've laid out a sketch and I am just starting to add shading. Now, before you start shading your drawings, you need to make sure your sketch is laid out almost to perfection. It doesn't need to be perfect, but ideally it should be in a good place, so that when you start laying in these shades, these tones that create the shape of the face, you don't have to change anything, you don't have to erase anything, you're just going. Because once you start laying in these shades, changing things can ruin the drawing. At some point, you just have to live with your mistakes in the sketch phase if you've already started shading. boxy shapes in the forehead. As you can see right here, because a different shade implies a different plane, a different shape on the forehead. And if you know what you're doing, it can be quite easy to create a good amount of depth simply by using the value scale. With little effort. When you're looking at your reference photo in this stage, something you can do is squint. What this is going to help you do is see all the lighting variations that create the three-dimensionality of your object, your portrait, your person, your shape, whatever you're drawing. Squinting is going to leave out those small, minute details, and it's going to help you see the broader picture. And you can do this with anything. Looking at the sky, a person, a movie, it doesn't matter. It's if you want to see the composition, the basic makeup of an image, squint at it. If you want to see the color of an image, you want to open your eyes wider, because squinting limits the amount of light and color that are going into your eyes, but opening your eyes allows more color in. After a while, this just becomes automatic, and I'm observing myself squinting without even noticing. So we're just looking for the broad, simple shapes to color in as if you're a child with a coloring book. Simple values, and you usually don't want to leave the paper blank, because the blank paper, even toned, comes off as quite bright. And here again, because different shades apply different planes of the face, there's a plane on each side of the nose that is inherently separate from the bridge of the nose. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a light layer of shading to most of this face. Also is a good time to go into detail with all of these shapes in the hair. So these are mostly just very basic, simple shapes. Triangles, circles, while keeping in mind where the highlights are. And the shadows, you can build up a nice textured hair. Looking back at some of the art and mistakes I've made in the past, a lot of it revolves all you have to do is sit your ass in a chair, put a piece of paper down, sharpen your pencils, hit record, and go. It really doesn't require much thought. It seems to just flow once you get in a good state. Once you've been doing it for a couple of hours, it just comes out of you. It's almost like you're not even the one creating. Cheers. Okay, my plan was to smooth this out, but I'm out of paper towels, and there's nothing wrong with a little character in your pencil marks, so I am just going to continue. I am going to not miss a beat. It's usually about 1 in 100 works of art that are actually worth a damn. Like lightning can be hard to find. Or rather, it finds you. You just have to be creating. That's the one contingency. So, our light source is coming from behind the subject, from above and behind. So it's hitting the top of his head. It's pretty much not hitting anything on the face. Maybe the ears. Just a speck on the ears. And then the shirt. And what happens with this shirt? The shirt gets so bright that it reflects back onto the face. And those small reflections in light can have some really positive effects on your art if you can pull them off. It's not exactly easy to do, but if you do your studies, if you figure out the small minuities, is that even a word? Why do I feel like that's not a word? It's doable. So pretty much this whole face is in shadow. And not to mention he has a darker complexion, so it's going to be darker anyway, but it is also in shadow. So you can, just by making that observation, you can make some educated choices inside your drawing. You'll come out on top of it with some quite spectacular art, which has always been the goal for me. I don't really know about other artists because I've never been to art school. I do show my work. I don't interact with many other artists outside of Instagram. So I'm in my own bubble. I'm in my own world. I don't really know too much about what other artists are thinking or doing. To be honest, it's kind of irrelevant to me. I quite honestly don't care. Most of the time. Sometimes you make some exceptions, but it is a rare occurrence. And this shirt's gonna reflect onto the side of his lips. Oh, so shape in these features. Let's work into the hair. You're only worried about where the light is hitting here. So if you can imagine your light source and where it's coming from and the angle your subject is, along with the shape of whatever your subject is, you can then go about shading in a very accurate way. When I was a younger artist, I would just scribble willy-nilly. But if you can make some educated guesses, like this is some sort of science, because there are some rules to nature and reality and just the way this dimension works. It works nicely into your drawings, your art, your paintings, whatever you may do. You simply have to find the rules, because everything is governed by law. If you're living outside those bounds, that law, you probably won't be too much of a happy camper, if I had to guess. Now, this drawing is in a good place, and it's all quite neutral. The darkest part is in the glasses here. Great. Wonderful. If you're here, you're winning. Now you can begin to darken these areas where there is no light at all, no luminancy. With these darkest darks, you can begin to see where your drawing is really at in the value scale. Because you now have a reference point to the darkest dark. You begin to see, oh, this forehead isn't as dark as it should be. Color this thing in, giving some smooth gradation, making sure to be mindful of your more neutral areas, because those neutral areas are going to come forward and act as highlights, if you will, creating the shape of the face. Of your lip, there is this small layer of skin that connects your lip tissue to your regular skin tissue, and it's a tiny, subtle highlight. This shirt is reflecting some light on this top, on the bottom of the top lip. There is a small highlight and a highlight on the bottom of the nose as well. Now, as I go about finishing up the last few details of this drawing, I want to say Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe. Hit that little bell notification. It really helps me gain visibility and helps me support my art. It really goes a long way. I have some art available on my website right now. And yeah, that's it.